meeting, she comes in and she said, "Here you go." And she brings me the policies. Well, Walnut Creek still had the same policy, practically word for word, that was written in '65. However, Woods, they had changed their policy the February before, and they included people's assets, their pensions, their businesses. They had a whole different understanding of how money works today,
Right. Mm-hmm.
how people retire today. And I said, bingo. And so we wrote a policy. And then the first trial, I didn't bring that to the committee. I told them about it. And I told them what needed to be done. And they said, thanks, but no thanks. And I said, Mutual 5 is going to get this policy. So I had a policy committee, and we hammered it out. And there was one thing, like if you move in here and you have $500,000, say, in your portfolio, and you're 55, or you move in here and you have 500,000 and you're 85, a whole different thing.
Right.
55-year-old can outlive that 500,000.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
The 85-year-old, not too likely. So one of the people on the committee said, well, why don't we use the actuary tables that they have, Social Security has, predicting your lifetime, how many more years you're going to live, and then divide that up. And we did. And so we created that. That was our original thing, and we put other things in there, other issues, and we passed the policy. And the 30th day after we passed it, and we had to post it for 30 days. The 30th day, I had a big gathering in one of the clubhouses, and I invited all the salespeople that I could get and all the escrow officers I could find, and I had them come, and I explained our new policy, and they were so happy, and they applauded, and I said, now go out there and sell Mutual 5's property, and they have. We sold a lot of property last year, and so did Mutual 10, which sold about half as much, but they're about half our size, and they had adopted the policy totally without changing a word. And but nobody else did, and they're still not selling places.
Mm-hmm.
So we're doing very well. So that was my biggest coup. Yeah.
You want to talk about, all the roofs and all the solar panels and all the other stuff you did?
Yeah.
Or is that just too much?
Well, that's the details of that a president has to do. The mutual owns the buildings, so we have to take care of the buildings. The shareholder, when you move in here, you buy a share. You don't own this. I don't own this. I only have the right to live inside this unit.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that's beyond outside the four walls, the mutual is responsible for. I'm responsible for painting, flooring, that kind of stuff. Kitchen, but pipes and electricity and roof and all that stuff is the responsibility of the mutual. And when you have a roof as big as this, we started doing roofing about 3 years ago. A roof cost about $70,000 or $80,000. Then all the hurricanes came, Puerto Rico and Texas, and I said, the price of wood and everything's going to go up because they want to build too, and we're all in the same marketplace. And then we had the wildfires in California. The prices are going to go up. So now we're paying $130,000 for a roof. So now we're doing 3 or 4 a year. In the meantime, we had the pipes. We had not lead pipes, but what are those, galvanized pipes? We didn't have lead. We had galvanized. but they were now well over 50 years old. And what happened in one of the mutuals is they sprung leaks, and different people were reporting pinhole leaks, and they're behind the walls in the bathroom and in the kitchen. And then they leak in the flooring, and it's a big mess. And it was very expensive to fix. Mutual One had 2 of them happen in one building, and those 2 cost as much as a whole roof. So when we had our first pinhole leak, I said, we're doing the pipes. We can patch roofs, but we don't know when we're going to have leaks, pinhole leaks behind walls. So we did that, and it's all done. We have all copper piping and new faucet taps and things in the shower. Mm-hmm. And
how do they change the pipes?
Yeah, we changed the pipes. All the pipes.
Behind the wall. How do you get in and change them?
Well, they cut it. In the shower, they just, take off the plate and made a bigger square so that they could get in there. And they drop it from the attic. And then they do it, and then they put a bigger plate on it. That's a nicer plate than we had. It's really old. Mm-hmm. And then in the kitchen, it's behind the sink, so nobody sees that. But they can go in back there and under the kitchen sink and the bathroom sink and the toilet. Those are the 4 places they had to change the plumbing. And there's a space back there behind the refrigerator where the water heater is, that 4 units join that space, are all in that space. So they get to a lot of the stuff there. Yeah, and they get a lot of the stuff from the attic. Yeah.
Did you want to talk about some of your...
You want to talk about my artwork?
Yeah.
Well, before we talk about your artwork, you want to talk about how you've been in the newspaper?
I made what?
How you were in the newspaper.
Oh, I was in the newspaper.
Twice.
Oh, well, twice that we remember. My father remembers me being in the paper in Detroit for holding a class in the Free Press on the bottom of the first page, under the fold. George and Laura Bush were on the top fold. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't a very big news day, and they put me on the first page because I was teaching a class at the library in Troy called How to Train Your Brain. And, it's for seniors. On Saturday it was free, and they interviewed me, and I told them what I was teaching. And don't ask me because I don't remember. I've taught so many classes. I don't remember what I taught in that class.
It worked its way up from the local Troy paper to the Oakland Press, and then finally to the Detroit Free Press.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, it was 3 different papers, one day after the other.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't remember. Well, I'm glad you remember it. Yeah. And
then here you were in the paper too.
A few times here.
But in the big paper, you got into the big paper.
Yeah, well,
it's sort of like...
But here I was in the paper because we had a problem with kitchen fires. People would leave, especially hard-boiled eggs, on the burner, mm-hmm. and then they would start a kitchen fire. They'd walk away, lock the door, and it would just burn up and start a fire, mm-hmm. with anything that was close by. So we found out about safety burners. I found out about them. The salesman came here, and right here, and I was instrumental in inviting them to come in and put in burners in Mutual 5. We did that. We changed most of the burners. And of course I was in the paper because I called the insurance company. They were totally thrilled. And the vice president of risk came out. She was really thrilled, and I heard afterward that was the difference between us not getting insurance and getting insurance. And also we got a reduction in insurance, which is unheard of.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a big deal. That was another thing I did. I did things like that. Yeah, always forward thinking.
You want to talk about the centenarian program where you?
Oh yeah.
That's where you got into the bigger picture.
So when I was I looked at the people around me, and I met a man. The first thing he told me was, "I'm 100 years old." So I knew there were a bunch of centenarians here. So I asked the, I was chair of the newspaper. I was on GRF board, and I was chair of the newspaper committee. So I wanted to find that out so I could write about the centenarians. And I found out there were about 22 to 24 here. And there always are. It's always around the same number, different centenarians, but always around the same number. They don't live forever. And I say, why don't we give them a luncheon, celebrate them, that's a big deal. So everybody was excited, and we arranged that. I arranged that with a few people. Had a lot of problems from a lot of the other directors, but we did it anyway. Because at first they said they would give us the money to do it, and then we had to charge people, and they paid. And people flew in from Wisconsin, from Idaho, because their relative was being celebrated, the 100th birthday.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a big deal for a lot of people. And it was very successful. We organized it well, and it went off very well. We had little bios of a lot of the people, and we told stories about them. And one of the people on my committee, her deceased husband, used to work for the Long Island paper, Long Beach paper. And she had contacts in the community, and so she called them. It was her job to do the publicity, and she called them. She got us TV. She got us a lot of publicity. So people came from all over. So those guys who were mad in the first place got furious. Because one guy said he had the veterans, and they should get this, they shouldn't be the centenarians, they're the veterans, and so do it for the veterans, like we did it for the centenarians, you do it for the veterans. You've been head of that group for years, why haven't you done it? But he just was a poison person, and he poisoned a few people. And I had a very hard time. It was a 2-year term, and I resigned after 1 year because over this. They were men. We were all women. They sent nasty emails calling us crooks, among other things. And they were very bad, very bad. And so I left, and they influenced the board. This group of women wanted to be the president and vice president. They wanted the power. And these guys said, if you get rid of her, we'll vote for you. So they took me off the committee. They took away my, being head of the committee,
Mm-hmm.
the newspaper, and also even being on any committee. And they were giving me nothing. So I resigned because I knew I didn't want that kind of year. I didn't want to work with these people. So that was hard.
Yeah.
But I survived it, as we all do. We have hard things happen, and I survived it. That's something I found in my life, that there are people who will be kind of irrational. Like this guy, he was head of this veterans group for years and years and years. So why didn't you have a dinner?
Right.
why are you mad at me? Because we made a dinner for the centenarians. But that was at the crux of it, and he was bitter. Yeah.
Jealous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were very jealous of our success. Very. So that's the way that went. So when you talk about, what's that thing? Me Too movement. No, it wasn't sexual harassment, but it was harassment of me as a woman, us as a group of women being successful. It's not quite like that anymore. Because
Right.
now because when I was on the board, there were only about 8 out of 18 or less, 7. We were in the minority. Now they were in the majority on almost every board. So it's changed completely. In the 10 years I live here, mostly it was men on the boards. Now it's mostly women. Yeah. Yeah, very few men presidents left. Mostly women.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, the men, at that age, like, they would have grown up,
No, they grew up with a lot of prejudice.
Yes, exactly, like, against women.
Yeah.
So, those are probably views that they still hold.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
then one of these 3, I was in another group, and one of these 3 came in, and I went over to get a cup of coffee. We had a break, and when I used to drink coffee, I went out to get a cup of coffee in the back, and then when I came back, he was gone, and Anna, the head of the group, said, "Oh, what happened to him? Where did he go?" I said, "I don't know. I think he saw me and he ran away. I guess he's afraid of me." That was really good. Yeah. Well, they're still around making trouble, those 2. The one died, the one with the veterans group, he died. But the other 2 are still around making trouble. They are.
For other people.
What?
For other people.
Yeah, they keep doing it to other people. It wasn't just me, it's them.
They do it to both men and women?
Yeah, I think so. But they use that kind of language, that kind
Are they still in power?
of, yeah.
No.
No, they have no power.
No power. Okay, that's
They're
better.
not on the boards anymore.
That's better.
Neither am I anymore. So I resigned.
You did your share.
Yeah, I resigned the night before I was having exploratory surgery to discover what was the matter with me. They didn't know. So that brings us up to old age, where I am now after a 3-week exploratory medical stuff. Finally, they did a biopsy and sent it to UCLA, and they sent it to UCLA, and
Carol.
UCLA determined that I have mesothelioma, which, as you know, is a cancer that is from asbestos. Asbestos is microscopic, and it comes in talc, which is a product of the earth. Sometimes it's in there. And the companies that have used talcum powder for either baby powder or makeup powder, they knew about this. And yet they used it. They took the chance. Well, some of us lived long enough for it to come out.
Right.
Most of the people died younger, but some of us lived long enough. It was very slow growing. So I'm one of the ones that lived long enough. Yeah. So that's that story.